Katie, I have a very serious question. You probably know by now that when I say that, I actually have not a serious question at all.
Yeah, I do know that about you.
Okay. Does your back hurt right now?
It's constantly hurting.
Yeah. Do you think it's because you're hunched over your iPad like a troll most of the time?
I am the biggest troll when it comes to drawing, working on my computer, pretty much just existing through life. I am a troll.
Well, you know what? I didn't mean that as a personal attack. I meant that as like a designer's.
It's facts.
I think designers in general, we all struggle with this, is that first of all, we zoom in to like 8,000% to make sure things are smooth and crisp. But we also like try and get comfortable, and sitting in a chair, especially one that's not ergonomic, is pretty uncomfortable. And the angle of our computer, it's usually not at the right height. And so when I'm on my iPad, I'm usually in some sort of like contortionist contraption, like I'm a professional.
Like Cirque du Soleil style.
Exactly. And then I end up hunching for the rest of the day. And we finally found something that is going to help us with our hunch.
Thank goodness. Help our hunch.
Really make it more enjoyable. And that is the dartboard from AstroPad. And the crazy thing is, I started using AstroPad and their products, I don't know how long they've been around, but since then, because they started as this kind of mirror display for your computer. And so they've always been in this business of like making, designing, and using a tablet more comfortable. But now this dartboard, it really is going to change the game, because now I can work from my couch without hunching over. I can work from my desk without hunching over. And the coolest thing is like, it's under 5 pounds. It's so lightweight. Do you remember being a kid in like a car ride and having like a little craft box that your parents would give you?
Yeah, like almost like a little desk situation.
That's like exactly what this is.
Yes.
It just feels right. Because then
it's like a little lap desk.
It's like a lap desk. Thank you. Or like a breakfast in bed.
Ooh.
Right? Like a tray. It's like a tray. Anyway, we love it. The minute the Kickstarter went on board, Katie was like, I need this in my life. And so we're super excited that AstroPad is sponsoring this episode, because it is going to be a game changer. And I still think I'll need to get monthly massages, which I don't even do now, but it's been on my bucket list for a long time. So nobody's going to take that away from me, but I think it's going to make my back pain so much better. So I'm really excited about this launch.
I just want to clarify a little bit about what it actually looks like.
Sure.
So there's like a little hole for your iPad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's a lap desk with a little inset place where you put your iPad. And so suddenly, instead of trying to balance your iPad on your little knobbly knees, all of a sudden you have a lot more surface area to work with, so that you can really have like a makeshift desk anywhere you go with your iPad. And that's so pretty freaking magical.
Do you think that I should have given a description before just talking about how much I loved it?
No, I love the way that this has happened.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm just going to do, for those of you who are watching and not listening, I'll walk through what I'm doing, but I'm going to lean back on my couch because comfort is king. And it's in its case. I'm just pretending. This is goals. I'm literally lying down.
She looks so relaxed, people.
Anyway, thank you so much to AstroPad. We're so excited about this product. You can grab one. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's pretty freaking cool. It's definitely going to change the game for us.
Cute. So natural.
So natural. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about art licensing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
Love that energy from you.
Yeah, I'm bringing it.
We talk about art licensing a lot. And
constantly.
when Katie and I said we would talk about this, I said to Katie that we should talk about it with our eyes closed, because I feel like we know a lot about the industry, but also it's such a mysterious industry that people aren't talking about very openly. And so let's open the floodgates, you know?
I love that you want to talk about it with your eyes closed, as if that'd make it harder in any way.
It would literally be the same. Isn't that just like a turn of phrase?
Yeah, you could do it with your eyes closed, but it's more something that requires you to have your eyes open in the first place.
Okay, well, it's going to be great. We're going to make it feel really accessible. We're going to talk about what we've learned, and hopefully you'll walk away feeling like you're ready to start licensing your artwork.
And we'll just leave it up to you to decide if our eyes are open or closed while you're listening. We're going to just close them at certain times and let us know if you can tell.
You know what? It wouldn't be surprising if I actually, like, if I didn't have my camera on and I actually was laying down and doing another task during this. That would not be off-brand for me. So
no,
I'm not, though. I'm fully not, because
she's the ultimate multitasker, people.
Yeah, and no one said I did it well.
Not that. Yin and yang, baby.
Okay, so if you don't know, I feel like you're pretty good at giving a digestible understanding of what art licensing is, but it's basically when a company rents your artwork. So maybe you can do a little more in depth.
I mean, yeah, that's at the heart of it, is you're creating art that then you are selling to a client, and they take that art and they put it on a product. So think about stuff like greeting cards. That's like a product that Alana and I do all the time. And that's pretty much mostly the type of art that I license, is art for greeting cards. But there is so much out there that you can put your art on there. Think about home goods like pillows and bedding and art prints. Then think about pet products. We've got leashes with patterns on them. We've got little bandanas for your cute little pup. Oh, that's got to be on my wish list of stuff to do, is like a cute little bandana for my pup. Oh,
yeah, that'd be adorable.
Do you have a thing to say?
I do. So one of the ways I like to describe licensing to people who maybe aren't at all familiar with it is to think of Disney and Mickey Mouse. So anytime you see like a Mickey Mouse and it looks exactly like Mickey Mouse, like it is Mickey Mouse, it's not someone's like iteration, they have, or legally should have, paid a fee to do that collaboration. And so typically, like, let's say it's Target and it would be like Disney by Target collection. The Disney logo would be on it, and then they would have to pay for the rights to use those designs, and then they would look like the real thing and not like fan art, like where it's not the actual character but someone replicating it or doing their own interpretation. It would be the real thing. And if you think about all the ways that you can buy Mickey products, you can buy backpacks, you can buy tumblers, you can buy apparel, you can buy notebooks. You can get in there with the lunchbox. Katie just bought her Mickey Mouse lunchbox, obviously.
Finally, I've been saving up.
Like, seriously, if you go to Disney, if you're a Disney fan, spoiler alert, I am, in the shops, there's never ending. There's characters, there's teddy bears, there's so much. In the real world, we do that same exact thing with art from everyday artists. It's so cool. And we didn't know this existed back when we first started getting into surface design.
Well, and there's another thing that you have to understand about creating art and rights. You hear like the term copyright, and that's RIGHT, not WRITE that I'm talking about. And that's ownership of art. And something you need to understand to get the whole licensing thing is that when you create a piece of art, you own the rights to that art automatically. There are further things that you can do to additionally protect yourself, which we're not going to go into right this moment. However, just understand that concept. And then from there, you can sell those rights to other people. You can give them temporary access to a piece of art that's limited by an amount of time, that's limited by a territory. So you can say, you can only sell this in the US. If you want to take it over into the UK, we're going to have another conversation. You're going to have to pay me more money. You can limit it by a media where they can actually put it. Or you can say, only on this certain type of product, only on t-shirts, for example. But if you want to then additionally put it on a billboard, you're going to have to come back and you're going to have to pay me more money. So that's part of why we love the licensing model so much, instead of just giving ownership over, full ownership, which is also called a buyout. We prefer to license pieces of it so that you can make additional money off of it if they want to expand the scope or the usage, or if you want to sell it to other people. It just gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more income potential, which we love.
Yeah, we do. We do love that. I think one of the big differentiators here is that anyone doing freelance, unless you're being hired to do like branding or something where the client is going to exclusively need to use that art for their brand and can never be repurposed. But anyone doing a mural, you can add licensing fees. Doing a t-shirt design, you can add licensing fees. So this is not exclusive to the art licensing industry, but we're specifically in this episode going to talk about our experience with art licensing. And that typically means for products. So like we said, greeting cards, pet market, apparel, things like that. The other thing I wanted to note is that the way that we both fell into this, we did not know this industry existed, but the way that we both fell into this was not very graceful. But it's really crazy how similar our paths were, because if you've been following our journey for any time, you've probably heard that we slid into each other's DMs, and we didn't know that our journeys would be like these parallel paths that we took. But we both were running our own Etsy shops and trying to grow a wholesale line. And it was pretty freaking exhausting.
To say the least.
It's just not for everyone. Yeah, it's amazing. And the potential of how small business and product shops are like at our fingertips now, and that they can be started much more easily than they could be 10 years ago is amazing. But it just wasn't right for us because we really wanted to be doing other pieces of the business besides packing and shipping and managing the storefront. And so when we found licensing, we were able to step back from doing those things and just create the artwork. And that was a really big game changer for both of us. But anyway, the way we both found it was we were reaching out to clients to do freelance projects or getting inquiries for freelance projects. And both of us, probably around the same year too, got an inquiry from a client saying, hey, here's the contract. But then it had this usage and licensing term attached, and we had absolutely no idea what that meant. And for me, there was no upfront money. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a chance. And I actually quit my job, my full-time job, that same like month. And I was like, this is the thing that turns me over the edge. I'm going for it. I had been planning to quit my job for like 3 years, and I had like 3 other things lined up, but I really did take a chance. And it did pay off.
But your first inquiry was really unusual, right?
It was so unusual, yeah. So my first inquiry was so unusual because like 18 months later, it had paid me as much as my full-time salary had paid me. I hear the jaws dropping. Listen, I've never been able to recreate that ever. Even with that exact same job year after year, it was, I don't want to say a fluke, but it was very rare. But it did completely change my perspective of how I would run my business. And at the time, I was girl bossing too close to the sun. I mean, I was working 120 hours a day. Like, is that a thing? I didn't have kids. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities outside of my own well-being. But that was interesting. What about your first licensing gig?
My first licensing gig was for some digital greeting cards. And yeah, they just mentioned the word licensing, and I was like, yeah, totally. I know what that is. Didn't know, had no clue. So I used my best friend Google, and didn't turn up a ton of information, but I found enough to like basically figure out what they were asking me. And yeah, I made some greeting cards. It was my first foray into that space. And really how they found me was because I was creating my own greeting cards for my own product shop, and I was posting them on Instagram. So they knew I could make a greeting card, and boom, that's how it happened.
Love that. Love that for you. I think there's like this secretive, just not an open door policy about it. And so hopefully we'll shed some light on that today. But I think both of our situations are not more common today, but I think more people partner in this sort of way today than they were doing before. And I think the presence of social media, but some companies have still never heard of it. So it's kind of a toss up, but we'll share some tips for how you can get started in it and why it's so different than probably what you're used to with freelance.
Let's talk about financially why it's a little bit different than what you're probably used to with freelance.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some cool shiz called royalties.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of the licensing world, and it is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Like I said, after like 18 months, that job that I first took ended up paying more than my full-time salary. And that was because the product was sold in nationwide stores, at like big box stores. And I have to look back at the contract, but let's say I was making 3% of every sale. It was like a $30 product. And so 3% on 100,000 units, this is not actual math. I'm not mathing right now. I'm just throwing numbers out. Who knows what the answer is, but don't run these numbers. I will tell you the real numbers. I just don't know the percentage numbers. So I made about $40,000 from that job, and it was spread out over probably 18 months. And I think my royalty was somewhere between, I think it was 3 to 5%. I have to look back and remember. This was a long time ago. But at the time, the stores were carrying such huge units of this product. And so over time, that volume adds up. Whereas if you're selling in a mom and pop shop and you're getting 3% of royalties, it's going to be a much smaller number because the volume isn't as great. But it's like a risk versus reward. It's like how much you have to weigh the options, and you can negotiate those things.
I just want to take a quick step back and make sure everybody's on the same page with the definition of royalties.
Oh, yeah.
Love those definitions. So royalties basically means you have a stake in how well the product sells. So I put my art on a greeting card. They go and sell the greeting cards on their own, and I get a percentage that's predetermined of how much they sell. So typical for greeting cards, what, like 6 to 8% off the top of my head?
Yeah.
So it's a great thing because they'll pay you quarterly or potentially yearly, however you set it up. Usually it's quarterly. And a lot of times, because the art licensing world works so slowly, or it's just behind, because you give the art to the production team, they have to put it on the product, they have to get it into stores, and then they have to sell the first quarter worth of products. And then they have to process your payment. And then they have to mail it to you or like deposit it in your account, whatever it is. So it takes a while for you to actually get the payment. But by the time that you do, it feels like free money, even though, you know, it's not. You worked for it and you earned it. You forgot about it. So you're like, oh, yay. Maybe I didn't have as many clients as normal this month. So, but I have this royalty check that I forgot about. And that's really helpful to even out. We always say even out the ebbs and flows of your freelance income or your income from other sources as an artist.
I think the point there is it's not a get rich quick, right? Like it's not some scheme where it's going to happen quickly. It's going to take a long time. And I think one of the things we often see, because we teach a course on this is how we started working together, is teaching about art licensing. People expect it to be faster than it is. And it's not, because you could send your work to someone and it's not right for them at that moment because they're not looking for that style design. But in 6 months, a year, 2 years, they might say, we're looking for that style for this upcoming collection. So it is a slow game in so many ways, but it can be a very lucrative one. And I just want to note that we don't license our work full time. It is a large income stream for us. It is not our only income stream. It is possible to make it your only income stream, but that requires devoting all of your time and energy to it. And we don't do that because we have other things we're really excited about. And so we're coming from the perspective of, wow, it really changed how all the pieces of our business work together. But we know plenty of people who have made it their full-time income. We know plenty of people who have it as a small kind of side piece. Ooh. And for us, it's been a significant piece of our pie. It is a very interesting industry. And yeah, that's just some like things I want to put out there so people have a grasp on that.
This is pretty synonymous with, if you've heard of surface pattern design, that's an industry that really overlaps and almost is exactly the same as this. The only difference is really surface pattern design, when we talk about that specifically, is often talking about like patterns, and a lot of repeats tends to be in that industry as far as the art that's actually going on the product. But it's not necessarily exclusive to that. That just tends to be what that industry produces. And then when we license our art, we're licensing, just because our specialty is like lettering and typography. So a lot of what we're licensing is lettering based or illustration based, like a lot of spot illustrations. I haven't ever licensed a repeat pattern myself. So those are kind of two different routes you can go down, or you can combine them and do spot graphics and patterns. So I just wanted to clarify that those things are in the same realm, because I think people get confused about how surface pattern design fits into licensing sometimes.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw I can't think of like an idiom for this one, but to add to that, in case anyone is confused, let me just mix it up a little bit. I am represented. So I have an art licensing agent, and they share my work with clients and they help me manage my projects. And they would consider themselves an art licensing and surface design agency. And so it is synonymous. Like it's the same industry. It's just that some people focus more on the like fabric, repeat patterns. And I do mostly greeting card-esque things, but I do have some repeating patterns when I feel like I want to make one. But we'll talk about agents a little more in a second because I think it's an important piece of the convo. But I want to go back to talking about the ways you can get paid, because royalties is not the only way. We have also been offered flat fees, which is like we'll either pay you $1,000 or we'll give you 3% for the lifespan of the product. And that's when that risk versus reward comes in, is you have to figure out how many units are they selling? What would that look like? And you take more of a risk with a royalty, but if you can run those numbers and kind of figure it out, oftentimes the royalty is worth the risk, but not always. And you're not always going to know. And
you can ask for past examples or like other artists that they're working with. That's always something that I do if I'm given that offer. And my number one favorite offer is obviously a combination of those two things, which does exist. You can get a flat fee that's just yours plus royalty, or you can get a flat fee as an advance on the royalties. So they'll be still giving you royalties, but they'll give you the first $1,000 up front. So then once your royalties start coming in, you have to make that $1,000 before they'll start giving you anything additional. So those are some other ways that it can be structured.
And the coolest part about this is that, let's say Katie licensed this greeting card to a company. Like she said earlier, she licensed it to a greeting card company and they're selling it only in the US in whatever store. Then she gets an inquiry from a company in the UK who wants to sell that in like the TK Maxx, right?
Really?
So then she'd have a whole other license for that store because it's the same umbrella. Let's say it's a different company completely. And she'd be able to double dip that work and get paid for it twice. But she didn't have to do any extra effort to, the work is already created. Or she might have some terms that say she can't license this for greeting cards anywhere else, but she can license it for gift bags. And so this company says, oh, we'll put it on a gift bag. And so there's a couple terms that like really pop up. One of them being exclusivity. And that can mean exclusive to a specific territory. That can mean exclusive to a specific category. And all of these would be things and nuances like in your contract. And you'd want to be tracking those to make sure you can double dip your products. And so you can make more and earn more from it. But truly, the licensing industry is like a tumbleweed where the more artwork you create, the more opportunities you have. But it's not about just churning out work left and right, because you want to create things that you're proud of and that you'd want to see on products that are appealing to buyers. And so your portfolio ends up looking totally different than your freelance portfolio would look like, because it's work that's available for hire. It's almost like you were a painter and you're selling your originals, except you can sell an original more than once because it's digital.
Yeah. We have a kind of like a metaphor that we like to use to explain this, where you can think about your art licensing portfolio like a menu at a restaurant. So you would sit down at an Italian restaurant and you basically know what kind of thing to expect. You're obviously, as an artist, you have a point of view, you have a tone, a style that a lot of your art follows. So they know what to expect and they can order something that is just right off the menu and take it as is and give you money, transaction complete. Or if there's somebody that's like a little bit pickier or has like an allergy or something, they might want a bit of a substitution. So they'll say, I want the lasagna, but don't give me basil on it. I'm really going with this metaphor. So you might make a little tweak, or if there's somebody who really has a completely different vision from something, they know that you could make it because you're a great chef, but it's not on the menu. They might ask for something completely custom. And it's up to you if you want to say, yeah, I'll absolutely do that. Or if you say, no, the menu is set. Sorry.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things when creating for licensing and building a licensing portfolio is that a lot of artists make things with kind of social media in mind. Like, oh, I'll share this for social media. And that can be a good place to start. But you have to think about the context of where your artwork would do well on products. So for Katie and I, greeting cards is a very easy answer. It makes so much sense for us because we're doing heavy on the lettering. We're doing quotes or phrases, or little illustrations. So like birthday cards. But a birthday card or a birthday message is not going to make sense for a travel mug or for a pair of socks or for a t-shirt. All of those things are possible, but those are not everyday items where you're going to be like getting left and right inquiries.
Now I want birthday socks.
I mean, we can make that happen, of course, but immediately ordering birthday socks. But it's just not the mainstream. And so a lot of artists, I think that's the disconnect, is that people are like, well, I made this for Instagram. And we're like, well, it's a square and not many objects are square, first of all. Like greeting cards are almost never square because square envelopes require an additional postage.
Yeah,
so if you didn't know that, now you know. You're welcome. And you have to think about the context. Like if you want to be in fabric, think about what fabrics and what scale you'd want to see on quilts and what colors and things like that. And so I think the context comes into big play here. And that might be a place where artists get really hung up. And the other thing is like making sure you're creating things that buyers are looking for, not necessarily that your peers are looking for. Because again, like we said at the beginning, you're like working 18, I just said like as if I was a valley girl. You're working like 18 months ahead because it takes so long for the life cycle of the product to come to fruition. And so keeping that in mind when you're creating is really, really helpful. It's a mindset shift for sure from creating work specifically for a client to creating anything you want and finding that direction, finding that focus and that kind of zone where you're productive and intentional about what you're creating. So that being said, that's kind of a very, very brief off the cuff overview of the industry. I do want to talk about agents. Is there anything else we should touch on before I talk about agents?
Well, I think we talked about how your portfolio is different because you've pre-made the pieces of art, but we haven't really talked about how you know what to make very much. And I think that's like the biggest question that people are probably having right now. Like, how do I know what buyers want and how do I get there?
Well, the first thing you do is you join our blueprint.
Art licensing blueprint.
The art licensing blueprint. We made this thing. It's called the Portfolio Builder, and it's 100 different prompts for creating your portfolio. And basically what we've done is created these portfolio or creative briefs for you where we give you sample text ideas and we'll tell you what the theme is. We've given you colors to work with. And the way we got to those prompts was by doing trend shopping, looking at what's in stores, what's popular, and then looking at the categories that are always selling. New Year's, birthday, anniversary, Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, all of those things are always going to be on the shelves. Like nobody's canceling the holidays, okay? Nobody's canceling birthdays. Never. And so you can take any of these prompts and adapt them to your own voice by just pulling from these colors. And it's so fun. Katie and I have done the prompts ourselves and we compare our two. They never look anything alike. And if you're really into florals, then find a way to incorporate florals into those. And so that's one way to do it, is to find some of these prompts or to join some of these challenges online. But to go shopping and to look at what's already in stores is the best way to get a gauge of what is out there being licensed. But you have to remember that the lifespan, again, is like 18 months ahead. And so if unicorns are really big right now and you're seeing unicorns everywhere, don't make unicorns because they're not going to be trending by the time your product gets to shelves. And so I would say, okay, how can I take this unicorn theme and how can I put a spin on it so that it's not exactly what's already on shelves, but is maybe parallel and it'd be like a nice transition? I think one of the best ways to do that is to go shopping at stores where people are licensing their work.
Mm-hmm. And then like Alana said, thinking about the context of where you think your art could end up. You never know what a client might see your art and think, oh, I'm going to put it on a hat for a hamster. And you're like, wow, I never would have guessed, but I love it.
You just nailed it. You literally nailed it because I have made so many quotes that I'm like, this is perfect for a yoga mat or this is perfect for a notebook. And then they come back and they're like, we are putting this on our hamster hats. It's perfection. I'm always like, that's so interesting. You know, I never would have put it on that. But in all honesty, it hasn't been a hamster hat, but like a water bottle. I've had water bottles where I'm like, this isn't what I would put on it, but good for you. And it sells. It's fine.
There's some measure of you just don't know. But on the other hand, you can do your best to guess. You can say, hey, this is a happy birthday message. It's probably not going to go on a hamster hat. It's probably going to be more made for a greeting card or a gift bag or some wrapping paper. And so
good type hamster hats coming soon. TM.
So think about the size and shape of whatever thing you could see your art on, and then keep those dimensions in mind. It's also really helpful to make something that's a little bit free of clear aspect ratios. So I've really stayed away from putting a hard border around my artwork or anything that really confines it to a specific space. If you have kind of free edges or like negative space around a spot graphic or something, obviously patterns are different, but talking spot graphics, if you have some negative space to work with, you're really setting yourself up to have more flexibility with where that piece can ultimately end up, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so that's
agents.
Context. That's what?
I said agents.
Agents. Yeah. No, that's where I was going. I was trying to wrap up what we were saying so I could transition, but let's get into it.
I just was ready to.
That's great.
To hack it off and move on.
Okay. So Katie and I have both worked with and without agents, and a licensing agent is different than a illustration editorial agent. So you can have both as long as they are not exclusive. I have had both at one point, and there was no problem. They both were very understanding of what the other person's role was. An agent is not for everyone. An agent is not some golden ticket where all of a sudden you're going to be this famous illustrator. It is a great tool if you do not feel confident doing outreach emails, or you don't have the capacity to manage contracts, or maybe you're working a full-time job and you just want to create some art and see if you can do this on the side. However, my agent came and did an interview with us inside the Art Licensing Blueprint. And what she said was, when people come to her and ask if she will represent them, she wants to see that they already have several licenses under their belt so that she knows that they have an understanding of what her role is.
Because my agent gave me a quiz before. Yeah, I had a quiz to do about how much I knew about licensing before she would take me on.
And from an outside perspective, I would probably be like, that's insane. But now that I know,
yeah,
I get it. I actually get it.
Very unique. And some of them just don't have time to be teaching you from the very get-go.
I would say that doing outreach for yourself is very powerful. I understand it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of thought to build relationships. It takes organization and productivity. And the reason I have an agent is because it's like raining. It's like pouring rain right now, but so sunny out my windows. It is absolutely glorious. I just had to tell everyone that. So my agent, I love because I have young children at home. Good Type is our full-time job. And so to be able to have someone who can run that without me needing to carry that weight is amazing. And it took time to find the right agent for me. And there's so much more about it. It's such a layered conversation, but I'm really happy I have an agent, but it's not for everyone. And again, it is not a ticket to success. It is very much a relationship and a two-way street, and you have to pull your weight as well. And so I just don't want to see people saying, I'm ready for an agent. I just need an agent and I'll be fine. Like, actually, first you need to build a really good portfolio, get in a habit of creating artwork, and start outreaching so that you know what it's like to work in the licensing industry before you just decide that you're gung-ho, ready to go. Because you have to give up a huge chunk of your commission, huge, as in half of your commission to a licensing agent, which is not all agents. That is licensing agents typically take half because they are pulling that half of the work.
Yeah, they have a lot more of the outreach stuff on their plate than other types of agents typically do. A lot of other kinds of agents that you might be familiar with are more like managing inquiries that you're already getting all by yourself. But again, just because they do handle outreach, they've also got a lot of other artists on their roster likely.
Yeah.
They're working a million jobs at the same time. So it is not their full-time job to get you gigs. So don't go in with that expectation that it's just going to be popping off.
And they also have a client list that they're already working with and managing. And so they're not just doing outreach. What they're doing is they're having conversations and saying, here's all the art we have that applies to this. or let me ask my artist if anyone has something. Like, it's not just ooh, let me send an email, see if they want to work with you. And I do think the influencer economy has sort of shifted that, because I do think some agents are able to help influencer or art influencers book more collaborative projects where it's like a whole collection. But in the traditional sense of art licensing, we're talking about them just a one-off transaction where they're buying a or a couple pieces of art. And it's not this whole marketing plan of how are we going to sell this one greeting card. It is a transaction.
Yeah, it's definitely something like most things in life where you get out what you put in, and it's a relationship just like everything else. And you want to nurture your relationship with your agent. You want to be top of mind. You want to be someone they can count on and trust. And I just want to mention too that some art licensing agents do require like a specific amount of submissions from you per month or per quarter or whatever it is. So if you already don't have the time and space to be
you're not going to get it. Not going to make more time.
The time isn't going to just pop out of thin air unless you cut some stuff out or get really intentional about making that time. But that's something to have in mind if you are interested in an agent and you're looking around. That's a question that I would ask right from the get-go, is kind of what's expected from your artist as far as submissions and size of portfolio. How often are you expecting new work? That kind of thing. And some agents are fine with, like, if you already have a robust portfolio, they're like, oh, this is great. I have a huge catalog to work from. I don't need that much new work. That might be the situation. You just have to ask.
Yeah. So we created this course, the Art Licensing Blueprint, because when Katie and I both started, we couldn't find this information and we really wanted to tap into this market. We found, or at least what I found, was more people who were doing the gift wrap and the fabric. And I was like, how do I translate lettering to this? And so we created this course where we poured everything we know into this course, from how we set up our files to how we go into a store and find out if something is licensed. We have an outreach template, and we really just want to share everything because there is room for licensed art is literally everywhere. And so we want other people to be able to tap into it.
And I know something that is probably on your mind is, oh my God, contracts. Oh my God, how do I know any of this terminology? Like, how am I going to figure that out? Luckily, we have a lawyer who we work with all the time, and we talk to her in our blueprint as well. And we help you navigate that tricky contract stuff, because that is really, really, really important when it comes to licensing, is knowing the scope of how people are allowed to use your artwork. Yeah. And that's not something that just comes naturally. You have to learn the very specifics about this industry when it comes to contracts.
I feel like we're not even scratching the surface with this, but it's a nice kind of entryway point. And so if you have more questions about it, or you want us to touch on another subject within this, just let us know. hello@goodtype.us. But we've both been working in the licensing realm for, 10-ish years. And we've licensed greeting cards, we've licensed planners, and we've licensed a lot of water bottles, like I said. Not a lot of water bottles. I've done makeup bags and water bowls. I've done makeup bags, and the thrill of seeing my work walking into a Nordstrom rack. I did not know my work was sold in Nordstrom rack. I walked into a Nordstrom rack. I also don't have one near me. So I was visiting a friend and we were going shopping, and I walked in and I was like, oh, I might as well have pooped my pants in the middle of the store. I was so flabbergasted, I think would be the word I'm looking for. It was so cool. It was so surreal to have that reach. And I obviously got in the middle of the aisle and started freaking out and filming myself and telling my friend, I'm so cool.
I think the takeaway is art licensing can make you poop your pants in public. It's that cool.
And you can design hamster
just hats. Like Joe Jonas or whoever.
What?
Yeah, I keep seeing this headline where Joe Jonas is like, yeah, I pooped my pants on stage. And then his quote was like, this is real life. As if it was like a thing.
Wow. Honestly, what would you do would you pause the show? Hey guys.
I think he was like, the show must go on with my poop pants. And he just had to sludge around.
Well, I'm going to be honest right now. I didn't actually poop my pants in the middle of the store.
But nearly.
It was more of a feeling, you know?
It was it turned into a fart.
Oh my God. And that's all. Good Type is canceled.
We're going to get
great episode, guys. Great episode. Anyway, definitely buy our course.
Yeah. Go buy it.
Okay, so anyway, we love licensing. It has helped us. We can't take anything seriously. We can't go into a store without freaking out like a kid in a candy shop. It's really fun. You should do it. Okay, wow. This really took a turn. I wish I had a better way to come back from this, but listen, thanks for listening to the Typecast. Rate, review, subscribe, like, comment.
We'll drop the link to the art licensing blueprint in the show notes. You can also just go to goodtype.us and find it there. We would love to have you in class. It really is a great resource, and we don't talk that much about poo, so don't worry. But we will help you license your art like a pro. All right.
All right, all good things.